I came home from work just after 9 p.m. I was sweaty, tired, and starving. It had been a rough shift. 3 tables walked out, the dishwasher broke, and I left with a headache the size of Texas. I remember thinking, at least I can crash in my room and shut the world out. But the second I opened my bedroom door, I knew something was wrong. My posters were gone. My desk, gone. The lamp my best friend gave me for graduation was tipped over near the hallway. In the middle of what used to be my room was my little sister Sophie jumping on my mattress like she owned the place. All my clothes were in trash bags shoved against the wall. Her pink glittery backpack was tossed on top like a final insult. I stood frozen like my brain needed time to process what my eyes already knew. Then I heard my mom's voice behind me. "You'll be sleeping in the den until you figure your life out," she said, just like that. No emotion, like she was telling me what was for dinner. I didn't even turn around. I just stared at Sophie, who looked me dead in the eye and smirked. "I wanted the window view," she said, then flopped onto my pillow. The floor beneath me felt like it dropped 10 feet. I finally turned around. My mom was standing there with her arms crossed like I was the unreasonable one. "You didn't ask," I said. My voice cracked a little, but I held it together. "You didn't even tell me. You've been back for 6 months, Zara. This was never permanent. Your sister is starting high school. She needs her space. She needs my room. We made a decision as a family," she said. "And you've been dragging your feet. It's time to start acting like an adult." It wasn't just what she said. It was the way she said it, like I'd already failed some invisible test. I looked over at my dad, who was sitting on the couch flipping through TV channels like he didn't hear a word of this. He glanced at me once and gave a small shrug like, "What can I do?" He could have said one thing, just one. But he didn't. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I nodded. I walked to the hallway, picked up one of the trash bags, and started packing the rest of my things. My parents raised me to respect the house, the rules, the hierarchy. So I respected it. I respected it so much I left it. But in that moment, standing barefoot in the hallway holding a trash bag filled with my life, I made a promise. They wanted me out. Fine. I was going to figure it out. But not just get by. I was going to become the kind of person they'd never be able to ignore again. When I graduated from college, I came home with a plan. It wasn't flashy or glamorous. I just needed a year to save money, apply for jobs, and catch my breath. I'd taken a practical degree in design, interned every summer, and graduated without debt. I thought that counted for something. My parents told me it was fine. They even said they were proud. My mom made me a carrot cake the day I got home. My dad joked about turning my room into a yoga studio once I got hired and moved out. We laughed. I believed we were all on the same team. At first I worked part-time at a diner while sending out job applications. Cleaned the house every week. I helped with groceries. I didn't go out much or sleep in late. I wasn't living some carefree, lazy life. I was tired, focused, and doing my best. I thought I was being respectful. But something changed around the 3rd month. I noticed my mom got shorter with me, especially around Sophie. She'd say things like, "Zara, don't just sit there." Even when I was working on my laptop or folding laundry. She started making these passive-aggressive comments about adulting and motivation. I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe I was imagining it. Sophie, my 14-year-old sister, had always been the favorite. I don't say that out of jealousy. It's just true. She's loud, confident, and always gets what she wants. She'd throw a tantrum and get new clothes. I'd quietly ask for something and get told to earn it. We were just different people. She started complaining about having to share a room with all her makeup and art stuff. She wanted a bigger space. She told my mom I had no life and was wasting square footage. I laughed when I heard it the first time. I thought it was just a teenager being dramatic. My mom didn't laugh. My dad, he never really said much, but when I pressed him on things, he'd smile awkwardly and say, "Just hang in there, kiddo. Things will work out." I think part of me kept trying to earn their approval, like being patient and low maintenance would win me some gold star. But the truth was I was invisible in my own house. Not loud enough to be a problem, not successful enough to be respected. I started noticing my things getting moved, my books shoved into drawers, my hair dryer gone from the bathroom. Once Sophie even posted a video on TikTok dancing in my room. When I asked her to take it down, she rolled her eyes and said, "Relax. Nobody even knows it's yours." That stung, not because it was my room but because she was right. Nobody did know it was mine. It didn't feel like mine anymore. I began to feel small in a house I grew up in. Every hallway, every family photo, every corner held memories that suddenly felt rewritten. I felt like a guest, like someone overstaying their welcome. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself I needed more time. I was interviewing. I was networking. I was almost there. I just needed a little more patience. Then one night I overheard my mom talking to our neighbor Mrs. Tran while they watered their flowers out front. "She needs a wake-up call," my mom said. "Zara's been coddled too long. She's not a child anymore." Mrs. Tran didn't reply. She just nodded politely, the way neighbors do when they're uncomfortable but too kind to show it. I stood in the kitchen completely still, holding a glass of water I no longer wanted to drink. That was the moment the script flipped. I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was a project, an embarrassment, a problem to fix. And then came that night. The night I came home to find my room wasn't mine anymore. Looking back, maybe I should have seen it coming. But when your family smiles at you over dinner and tells you they're proud, you want to believe it. You want to believe you belong. I thought home was a place you could come back to. I thought love made room for you even when you didn't have it all figured out. I was wrong. The first night I slept on the floor was the coldest I'd ever felt in that house. It wasn't just the hardwood under my spine or the thin blanket my mom tossed me like a favor. It was the silence, the kind that follows you into your chest and starts to scrape at whatever confidence you have left. I laid there in the den just feet away from the room that used to be mine, listening to Sophie laugh at TikToks. My name was still on the Wi-Fi bill, but I felt like I had disappeared. In the morning I woke up sore, disoriented, and angry, but I didn't show it. I folded the blanket neatly, grabbed my tote bag, and left early for my shift at the diner. My coworkers noticed the shift. I wasn't smiling at much. I didn't laugh at the manager's dumb jokes. When the dishwasher made a snide comment about me being quiet, I nearly snapped. I caught myself in time, took a breath, and kept walking. At home I kept my head down. I came in late. I stayed out longer. I started applying to jobs like it was a second job in itself. I submitted 25 applications in 2 weeks, mostly remote positions that would let me work without being tied to a zip code. My mom didn't ask how I was doing. She asked when I planned to contribute more now that I was rent-free. Sophie took over my old closet and started redecorating. She moved her keyboard in there, painted the walls mint green. She bragged to her friends that she had her own space now, like I had moved out instead of being shoved aside. One afternoon I came back early from work and heard them talking in the kitchen. They didn't know I was home. My dad was saying something about how things felt tense. "She's just sensitive," my mom said. "She'll land a job eventually. This is what she needs. Pressure. She's been working hard, Karen." "Working where?" At that diner? Come on. She needs to grow up. Sophie's thriving. Zara's just stuck. I backed out of the hallway before they saw me and went for a walk around the block. Every step burned. I didn't know if I was more hurt by what they said or by how easily they said it, like I wasn't even part of the conversation, just a subject. Later that week I was eating dinner at the counter when Sophie walked in, took one look at the frozen pizza I'd made and said, "Is that your big plan for dinner?" Wow, adulting hard, huh? I looked at her for a second. Just looked. She didn't flinch. You don't have to be so bitter, she added. It's not my fault you're stuck. I'm not stuck, I said. Sure you're not, she smirked, grabbing a soda and walking out. That night I opened my laptop and started looking at apartment listings. Then I saw something else. The house next door was on the market. I stared at the listing for a long time. It wasn't pretty. The photos showed peeling paint, old carpets, an overgrown yard. But the price was reasonable, and it was just sitting there right next to the place where I grew up. I clicked save and kept scrolling, but my mind stayed fixed on that listing. A few days later I saw a couple walk through the yard with a realtor. I felt something sharp twist in my chest. That house was nothing special, but suddenly I didn't want anyone else living there. I imagined strangers laughing on a porch just steps away from the people who had told me I didn't belong. I imagined waving politely across a fence, pretending I didn't hear them talk about me like I was a disappointment. I wasn't ready to leave my hometown yet, but I couldn't stay under that roof one more day. So I started calculating. I reviewed my savings. I picked up extra shifts. I freelanced graphic design projects on the side. I made a spreadsheet, set a goal, and gave myself 90 days. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not my manager, definitely not my parents. They thought I was still figuring things out. I was, just not the way they expected. I didn't leave after a fight. I didn't storm out, slam doors, or scream about how unfair they were. I wasn't interested in giving them that story. I didn't want to be the dramatic daughter who couldn't handle pressure. I wanted to leave as quietly as they had erased me. My decision was simple. I was done asking for space in a house where I wasn't wanted. I was going to buy my own. At first the idea felt like a fantasy. I didn't come from money. I didn't have rich friends or a trust fund. I had a few thousand in savings, a laptop, and a hunger that was starting to turn into fire. I needed a way out. And that house next door was calling me like a dare I couldn't ignore. I started with numbers. I listed out everything I had. Savings from working in college, a small emergency fund, some freelance money I'd kept separate from my main account. Then I started planning. Every shift at the diner became fuel. I took on every hour they offered. I told my manager I'd cover last-minute callouts, double shifts, weekends, whatever she had. At night I worked on freelance design projects, business cards, Instagram graphics, a logo for a landscaping company. It didn't matter what it was. I said yes to everything. I worked with my headphones in, blocking out Sophie's music and my mom's footsteps. I trained my brain to ignore their presence. I lived lean. I stopped spending on anything extra. No takeout, no new clothes, no nights out. Every dollar went into a separate account labeled next door. That account became my lifeline. Every time I transferred money into it, I felt a piece of my old self come back. About a month in, I reached out to the listing agent. Her name was Kelly. She met me at the house one Friday morning when I knew my mom would be at work. The place looked even worse in person, peeling paint, a broken fence, carpet stains, an old bird's nest wedged under the porch roof. I know it needs work, Kelly said carefully. But for someone willing to put in the time, it's a great deal. I nodded. I didn't flinch. I saw more than the flaws. I saw freedom. I saw the exact distance it took to be close enough to my past to remember it but far enough to never live in it again. How fast can we move? I asked. She blinked, surprised. Are you pre-approved? I'll be paying in full, I said. She looked me over like she was trying to figure out if I was joking. I wasn't. Within weeks the paperwork was moving. I signed the contract sitting alone in a booth at the diner after my shift ended. Kelly emailed me the confirmation with a digital signature line. I clicked it without hesitation. I was officially a homeowner. When I got the keys I didn't celebrate. Not yet. The house needed work and I wanted to do it myself. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Sophie. I didn't even tell my closest friends. I showed up to that empty house with a mop, a bucket and a second-hand toolbox I'd picked up at a garage sale. I spent my morning scrubbing and patching. I watched tutorials on how to sand floors and fix wiring. I hired help where I had to, but most of it I learned by doing. I painted the walls a shade of deep blue that reminded me of calm. Every brush stroke felt like a boundary I never had growing up. 3 months in, the place started to feel like mine. But I wasn't done yet. Not until the final touch. In the backyard was an overgrown patch of weeds and rock. I turned it into a pool. It was small, just enough for 1 or 2 people, clean lines, tile edges, a sun shelf. It wasn't a party pool. It was peace. It was luxury on my own terms. And it sat perfectly in line with one specific window, my parents' kitchen. I didn't say a word. I didn't leave a note. One morning I packed my bags, left my house key on the hallway table and walked 50 foot next door. I opened the door to my own house, barefoot, tired and proud. No one helped me. No one clapped. But I had done something bigger than proving them wrong. I had proven myself right. The first time they saw the pool it was early on a Saturday morning. I was stretched out on a lounger with a glass of iced coffee in hand, a towel draped over the chair, sunglasses on, phone down. I wasn't trying to be seen. I just didn't care if I was. The pool shimmered in the sunlight, the water clear, the tiles freshly grouted. It was quiet except for the sound of the small waterfall feature I had installed the week before. Their kitchen window looked directly out onto my backyard. That wasn't an accident. It was symmetry. I saw the curtain shift. My mother's silhouette stood behind the glass, still as stone. She didn't open the window. She didn't wave. She just watched. That was the moment I had been working toward. But I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I didn't need to. I was already full. A few days later my dad came to the fence. I had just finished watering a row of lavender I'd planted by the back gate. He leaned over the wooden slats, hands in his pockets, wearing the same faded golf shirt he always wore on Sundays. "Zara," he said quietly. I turned around. He cleared his throat and looked around at the yard. "You did all this?" "Most of it. I had help with the pool." He nodded slowly, then looked at me. "Looks good. Real good. Thanks." He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Your mom was surprised." I figured. "She thought you were still figuring things out." I was. This was the answer. He didn't argue. He just looked at the house then back at me. "You should come by for dinner sometime." I let that sit in the air for a moment. "I might," I said. He nodded again like that was all he could ask for and walked away. That was the only conversation we had that summer. My mom didn't speak to me. She didn't acknowledge the house. She never crossed the driveway, never looked me in the eye if we passed each other outside. But I noticed something different in her after that. A stiffness like she was forcing herself not to look, like not seeing it would somehow make it less real. Sophie on the other hand reacted exactly how I expected. She came stomping over one afternoon, arms crossed, sunglasses perched high on her head. "You really had to build a pool," she snapped. "It's hot in Texas," I said. "Pools are useful." She looked around at the clean porch, the freshly painted siding, the brand new patio furniture. "You know Mom's pissed, right?" "I'm aware." "She says you're just showing off." I raised an eyebrow. "Did she say that from the kitchen window or the porch?" Sophie huffed. "Whatever. It's not even that impressive." "Then you're welcome to ignore it." She stood there for another second, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, not with anger but with relief. I had spent so many years trying to earn something that didn't exist. I wanted them to see me, to validate me, to say, "You did good." But what I needed wasn't their permission. It was my own respect. I threw a small gathering the following weekend. A few friends, some music, food on the grill, drinks in hand. We sat by the pool, legs in the water, laughing like kids who hadn't been bruised by the world yet. I glanced toward the window once, but the curtains were drawn. I stopped looking after that. Later that night someone asked me how I pulled it all off. "You just seemed so quiet back then," they said. "I didn't know you had this in you." "I didn't either," I replied. "Not until they gave my room away." Because that's what started it. Not just the insult but the clarity. When someone shows you how little they believe in you, you have two choices. You prove them wrong or you prove yourself right. I chose both. And now every morning I wake up in a house I bought with my own money. I open my back door, step into my yard and swim in a pool they can see but can't touch. Not to be petty, not to hurt them, just to remind myself what it looks like when you build peace with your own hands. A year after I moved into the house next door, I stood in my kitchen sipping coffee from a ceramic mug I bought at a flea market. The window was open, letting in warm air and the smell of lavender from the garden. I wasn't rushing to get somewhere. I wasn't bracing for a passive-aggressive comment. I wasn't hiding who I was. This was mine. No one handed it to me. No one encouraged me. No one believed in me out loud. But I did it anyway. And that changed everything. I don't speak to my mother anymore. Not out of hate, just out of choice. You learn over time that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. She sends the occasional text on birthdays or holidays. Nothing emotional, just a line or two. I usually reply with the same. "That's our peace now." My dad and I talk sometimes. He doesn't bring up what happened. He asks about work. He comments on my yard. He looks around with a kind of quiet guilt, like he knows he should have done more but doesn't know how to say it. I let it be. I'm not looking for an apology anymore. That need has faded. Sophie graduated high school last month. I didn't go. We haven't really spoken since that day she came to my yard and accused me of showing off. I think deep down she knows she played a role in what happened. Maybe one day we'll talk about it. Maybe not. What matters now is this: I am no longer the girl on the floor. I've built a life with structure, with purpose, with softness where I never had it before. My house has quiet corners and warm light. The kind of calm I never knew I needed. I work remotely now for a design firm that values what I bring. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. I buy my own groceries. I set my own alarm. I make my own rules. But more than the job or the house or the pool, I built something else. Something invisible but strong. Self-respect. I don't measure my value by how much space I take up in someone else's home. I don't shrink to fit other people's comfort. I don't beg to be included. If someone doesn't see my worth, that's not my problem to fix. Looking back, I can see it clearly. When they took my room, they gave me something without meaning to. They gave me clarity. They showed me who they really were, not in anger, but in convenience. I was easy to push aside because I didn't fight back, because I played the role of the quiet, grateful daughter. But that night when I stood in the hallway holding my life in trash bags, something in me broke, and then rebuilt itself stronger. I didn't need revenge. I needed roots. And I gave them to myself. Now when I walk into my house, there's no tension in my shoulders. I don't wait to be judged or questioned. I hang my keys on the hook I installed by the door. I cook what I want. I listen to music without headphones. I swim whenever I feel like it. My peace no longer comes second to anyone else's opinion. Sometimes I still catch my mom watching from her window. I don't look away. I don't wave either. That part of my life is over. She made her choices. I made mine. And I'll never regret the day I stopped asking for permission and started choosing myself. If you're watching this and you feel like the floor is all you have, hear me when I say this: you are not a burden. You are not behind. You are not failing just because someone else doesn't understand your timing. You deserve more than space. You deserve respect. You deserve rest. You deserve to build something that feels like yours, even if it starts small, even if it starts in silence. Because sometimes the best thing you can do is pack quietly and build loudly. That was the real turning point. Not when I bought the house. Not when I filled the pool. But when I decided that I was no longer going to shrink to fit. They gave my room to my sister while I was still living there. So I gave myself the world. If this story hit something in you, if you've ever felt pushed out, dismissed, or underestimated, I hope it reminded you of what's possible when you stop waiting for someone else to hand you your worth. We don't always get to choose how people treat us. But we do get to choose what we build from it. Thank you for watching. Seriously, if this story made you feel something, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a comment and tell me what part stuck with you the most. I read them all and I'd love to hear your story too. And if you want more true stories like this, real, raw, and personal, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. I have more to tell. Until then, take care of yourself, protect your peace, and remember, sometimes the best thing you can do is move next door and build a better view. I'll see you in the next one.